Mel, 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 Mel. Everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Mel, Mel. Hey, everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Tesla, ticker symbol TSLA. Gonna spend some time talking about Tesla. It closed under 150 today. It closed at 149.93. After hours, it bounced back a little slightly above 150, but it's been very much of a falling knife. I'm going to talk a little bit in terms of what I'm doing, what my thoughts are, what I'm seeing, why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Is there anything that makes me want to particularly get into the stock right now? Why am I catching a falling knife? Why am I crazy? Things like that. We're going to try to address that a little bit here. So, first of all, I just want to say right out loud every stock has its own personality, every asset has its own personality. It generally likes to follow its personality through. The Tesla personality is that it always looks like it's going to roll over. It looks like, oh, it's going to get all super weak, but then it doesn't roll over. It just goes up. Always looks like it's going to roll over here. It looks like it's super weak over here, doesn't it? But it doesn't roll over. It just goes up. Big up too. This over here looks like it's going to roll over again. Roll over, and then it doesn't. It just keeps on going up and make this parabolic move that everybody remembered from around 2019 all the way to around 2021. And next thing you know, it rolled over. It looks like it was going to like break down to the floor, but it doesn't. It found support here for one of the trees or bottom, and then it bounced back up here, right? Next thing you know, it started to roll over again. Is this time going to be the time where you're actually not rolling over for good? I have people that tell me that this is unsustainable. Like you can't just have like a no floor kind of thing. Like you can't just have valuation up in the sky and just a price just kind of up in the sky. It has to correct. It has to back test some of the levels down below. It has to back test at least to the level right maybe around like 50 or 60 or so. Found a good ground, found a good floor, or even maybe just even double bottom over here before we go further, right? All this is, by the way, the whole leg over here from like around June to July 2023, all the way down to currently to like April 2024. This is really kind of lasting for close to a year now. This big giant downtrend over here has been happening on decreasing volume, right? So what does that mean? We'll talk a little bit about that. But I'll tell you what I'm doing right now with Tesla. For Tesla, I have been buying one share per week. That's what I've been doing. I've been trying to catch this falling knife very slowly, and make no mistake about it, it's a falling knife because there's no confirmation at bottom. It is absolutely silly to call a bottom, just like it is a little bit silly to try to call the exact top. It is a little bit silly to try to call the exact bottom because nobody really knows. We can speculate, we can look at indicators and try to infer in terms of where the bottom is going to be, but nobody really knows exactly, right? It's just all kind of like an educated guess. If you guess right, great. If not, that's okay. That's not what technical analysis is really all about. Technical analysis is really trying to find risk and reward ratios when things are getting a little bit risky versus when things are actually getting look like they could potentially be a pretty decent reward level over here. So the first thing when everybody's going to think about catching a bottom if they're into technical analysis is they're going to try to pull up the RSI, the relative strength index. In the standard way to look at it is really the 14 period over here. When you look at RSI, what people like to see is whether or not it's overbought or oversold. Just because it's overbought doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to tank or that it's going to top. Like over here, it looks like way overbought, right? But the price didn't really like budge all that much, and RSI just kind of corrected over time. And over here, it looks like it was kind of overbought over here, right? It was overbought even here. You could have very well possibly sold over here. Next thing you know, just make another big top right there. It looks like that's going to be the top, right? Nah, it keeps on going up, making another top right here. It does look like there's a little bit of trend exhaustion over here. And price kind of went up and RSI kind of went down. Yeah, that's the top, right? Nah, we're going to make another top. We're going to go to like 400. That's exactly what Tesla did. It can stay oversold for longer than you expected. It can also stay over. Sorry, it can stay overbought longer than you expected, but it can also potentially stay oversold for longer than you can expect, right? What I do know is this. Right now, the RSI is getting pretty much to one of the lower points of Tesla's history right here and right here. It's really getting to like the 40s range. So I think it's getting there, but there's no guarantee because again, looking at here, like who knows? Maybe next thing you know, it just kind of bounces and it makes another equal RSI, and price could be a lot lower, right? Like that's kind of how RSI works. It's not an exact number. It's just a momentum indicator, and momentum could continue to go down with price going down a lot further. That's always a possibility. So if you're trying to look at RSI, you might be catching a falling knife still because there's no confirmation it's going to be bottoming, right? If you look at a weekly time frame, okay, so what is the RSI down here, like in the 30s? What does it usually typically do? Are there any points in the past that seems like it was kind of low down here? Well, there is. There is like this point over here, which is a pretty significant bottom in around 2016 or so. There's another point over here, which is around like May 2019. Very, very low right here, which is a very significant low right here, right? And there's also another low that's even a lot lower on the weekly, which is right here, the spot when price is back to 100, all the way from 400 down to 100, right? Right now we're getting a little bit closer to the zone, although I can see some lows over here that didn't really turn out to be the low, right? I can see some low over here that didn't really turn out to be the low, right? But I do see, hey, it's getting to that range where it is pretty significantly oversold. I think we might be potentially getting closer to a bottom than a top right here. You can say that. There's no guarantee, but you can say that. And if you look at the daily RSI, daily RSI actually, if it was oversold over here around when price was like around 190, 180 or so, like the RSI looked like it was just really oversold. Next thing you know, price just kept on going down even further, right? And the RSI actually didn't really budge all that much. So price can go down further, and you can have RSI actually getting up, resetting over here. This is actually a bullish divergence. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But just because RSI is all the way down in the dumps doesn't necessarily mean that it bottomed. Just like over here, when price was around 180, 190, it didn't bottom, did it? It just kept on going down. So I guess it's more of a story here. I talked a lot for the last couple minutes about RSI. And more of a story here is that RSI is not a absolutely reliable indicator when it tries to find a bottom. It's just not an exact indicator for that. Price can hit very sold over RSI level and keep on getting more oversold. Price can end up being overbought for a very, very long time. So what are you going to use? Is there anything else you can potentially use to try and confirm a bottom? Another thing you can look at is if I pull the Bollinger Band over here on the monthly. Another thing you can potentially use is I like to see when the 20-month moving average start to change velocity and it starts to curl up. That's when I usually am able to kind of confirm there's a little bit of a long-term bull market that usually sustained for at least a year, right? So over here you can see that there's an increase, there's a slope of the 20-month moving average. Turned out to be a pretty decent bull market over here. They really start to downtrend a little bit sideways, a little bit downtrend over here. It starts to change velocity over here, right? When it changed velocity, it did end up going up for about half a year or so. It didn't really confirm, unfortunately. It changed slope here again. But then when things really change over here, that's when the bull market begins. Tesla is a little bit of an oddball. Usually for another stock, when you start to see a pattern like that, that's when you see that there's an increase in price potentially that can become a little bit longer term, right? And Tesla is a little bit of an oddball. I'm just going to show you what I mean by that when I look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been very much reliable in terms of trying to follow this pattern of this 20-month moving average starting to crawl up to become a more sustainable bull market. 20-month moving average here starts crawling up, actually act as support over here a few times before going up, more sustainable bull market. Looks like Bitcoin's starting to do one of those things again, right? But Tesla is a little bit of a different beast. Around the years of 2015 to 2019 or so, it was just kind of oscillating around here, did a little bit of a fake out, went back down. And the next thing you know, we have a very, very much of a very powerful bull market that happened. Right now, the one reason why I call Tesla a falling knife is because the 20-month moving average is right above of it. It's curling down. It could potentially serve as a little bit of a resistance before price goes up. Like let's say if it was trying to form a bottom right around here, theoretically, it could bounce back up. And next thing you know, because the 20-month moving average is pointing up so far negatively down, it could end up getting rejected. It could end up making another lower low further, right? This is a very unfortunate look. Initially, when price got back above the 20-minute moving average, there was hopes that it was going to stay above the 20-minute moving average. If it ends up making a little bit of a flattening turn right here, then that would be a very much of a confirmation that this might have been the bottom over here, and you could have gone up a lot higher, right? So far, we don't really have that because of the big giant red candle over here that happened in 2024, actually on declining volume. The volume actually is very pathetic back in January 2024. But because of this, price just kind of kept on going down on declining volume, which is something of a concern. Not a concern, but it does give that little bit of like a fake out kind of feel to it. And I'll tell you a little bit as to why I feel that way. But so far, there's no confirmation on the 20-month moving average. I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? So you can't use that. So what are you going to use to try to find a bottom? Typically, when you're trying to find a bottom, you really like to look at some kind of divergence, either through RSI or through unbalanced volume. I'll kind of show you what I meant by trying to find a bottom here. I'd like to pull up another stock over here, kind of show you some of the divergences that I'm seeing. Over here, this is Palantir, right? Ticker symbol PLTR. Let me go ahead and just pull up the weekly chart and as well as the RSI over here, right? What I meant by price usually start to bottom and you have a little more confidence the price is going to bottom when you start to see some divergence is here. I actually do see a very clear bullish divergence here on the RSI because price went down a lot, but the RSI, the bottom of the RSI actually went up. Like this is a pretty classic, bullish divergence over here. You have another bullish divergence a little bit over here too, actually. Like, price did continue to go down a little bit more, and you have RSI actually continue to just go up, right? So this whole divergence over here is telling you that, hey, maybe there's a good chance that this is really starting to form a bottom over here. Now, if you end up seeing bullish divergence and you end up buying, price could continue to go down further. And it did. If you end up buying over here around $8, thinking, hey, I'm seeing a bullish divergence over here. Next thing you know, price did end up going to $6, right? You would have lost about 25% of your money if you were bought right there. Or you would have said, oh, that was the bullish divergence right here. I'm going to keep buying over here. Next thing you know, you keep buying, your cost average is like 10, and it dropped down to 6, right? And you're like, this bullish divergence is crap, right? But eventually it does work out because what bullish divergence is telling you is that there's a deceleration of a downtrend, meaning that the bullish divergence basically means that the bearish energy is not there as much anymore. Like things are really trying to find a bottom over here. And sure enough, eventually it is able to bounce and is able to work itself out because of the bullish divergence over here is actually played out. The problem with frame prices going down, you're also going to battle a lot of these bearish divergences over here too, and things can kind of go up over here. You think you got in the clear, next thing you know, there's a bearish divergence over here that needs to be worked out. So price had to dump, RSI had to correct, and you end up building a bullish divergence down here, and then next thing you know, price went up again. So basically you have to kind of follow the trend, see what it's doing on a lower time frame if that's what you could be trying to do. With Tesla, it's a little bit difficult because are we seeing any RSI divergences over here to really suggest that this is going to be the end of the bear trend? The answer is no. I'm not really seeing any divergences over here. Maybe a little bit of a relative divergence. What I mean by that is like price really went down a lot over here, right? But RSI really barely budged. So over here, there's a little bit of like a relative bullish divergence that's happening over here. But there's not like a clear bullish divergence I was seeing like you were seeing on Palantir stock earlier, right? There's no clear bullish divergence that really makes you feel confident that you have bottom. But guess what? Maybe Tesla just doesn't operate that way because over here, did it have any kind of indicator for RSI divergence on a weekly or the monthly that was going to bottom over here? The answer is no, right? There's really not any type of divergence that you can really see. I mean, RSI just kept going down, price just kept going down. No divergence, right? There's also not really like a whole heck of a lot of bearish divergence here that I'm seeing on the monthly here either. And I'm also not really seeing any bearish divergences over here on the weekly chart either. So there's not really any like divergences that's really telling me, maybe except for like some slight relative bullish divergence over here over the last few weeks, to tell me that this is necessarily a bottoming process. But that's just kind of how Tesla operates. Here at bottom, there's no divergence, right? Here at bottom, I mean, there's a little bit of relative, hidden bullish divergence over here. So maybe that's why price went up, right? But what about this bottom over here? there's not really any divergence down here that you can really see. And also over here at this particular bottom, there's also not really any kind of divergence that you're going to see. The reason why is because Tesla always looks like it's going to roll over, but it doesn't. So RSI actually is not going to tell you that much. Like, it doesn't do what a traditional bottoming stock process would necessarily do. Tesla just doesn't do that. Like, it bottoms when it wants to, and then it bounces when it wants to. Maybe a little bit of relative bullish divergence over here to be thinking about, right? But unfortunately, there's not really a whole heck of a lot there to tell you. What about another indicator here? Is there something that we can look into that could potentially give you some signs that there might be some kind of divergence that's happening over here, right? Actually, there is. There's actually one type of divergence I'm seeing right now. And the type of divergence that I'm seeing right now is based on balanced volume between that and price. This really is a way to kind of calculate the volume bars over here by basically calculating buy volume and sell volume for each other period. And it tells you if price move a little bit too far down, but if it doesn't go that far down, if anything, if it goes up a little bit, there's a bullish divergence here. Tell you that there's actually some hidden buying pressures over here, right? That's kind of what we're seeing over here over the last how many months? Like since October, really, of 2023. Over the last 6 months, price just kind of went down. The unbalanced volume actually went up. That goes along with the fact that even though price is going down, the selling commitment is actually decreasing. Like the volume is actually decreasing over here. This fits, right? This is a classic bullish divergence between price and unbalanced volume. So there's actually some bullish momentum that's being built up for about half a year over here. Before that, is there any kind of bullish divergence? Can you see any bullish divergences over here? Not really, right? What about the time before that? Do you see any bullish divergences over here to tell you that things have bottomed? Not really. Like, I'm not really seeing any significant, bullish divergences up here. If anything, I'm seeing a little bit of a bearish divergence from here going to here, and unbalanced volume just kind of gone down. So maybe that's why price had to kind of continue to correct down a little bit. But I'm not really seeing any significant bullish divergences in the past during these bottoming processes, except for now. I think we're seeing some bullish divergence that's being built up right here. All right, so that was the RSI and the unbalanced volume. What about other indicators? Is there anything else that can tell you that might be bottoming? Let's look at the Bollinger Band. Sometimes when things are so far extended underneath the Bollinger Band, that's when you know that you have a bottom. Over here, when it bottomed over here, yeah, that's way underneath the Bollinger Band. Form a very, very nice dragonfly or doji candle, which is generally going to be signifying a bottom. It went up. Over here, it touched the lower Bollinger Band. Yeah, before it went up. Over here, it went way underneath the lower Bollinger Band, and it bounced up here, right? These are monthly charts, by the way. Down here, with these tweezer bottom over here, went really lower underneath the monthly Bollinger Band before going up, right? Are you going to get up going down and touch the lower Bollinger Band over here before bouncing up? Maybe in the 120s, 130s before going up, maybe even lower. By the time it gets down lower, maybe it's already expanded down even lower, right? Are you going to go down there before you go up? Not necessarily. I mean, over here, you didn't have to touch all the way back up above before going down, right? And over at the other locations over here, it seemed to be respecting the Bollinger Band over here and over here the entire way. So there's still a chance that you might end up having a little bit of a capitulation down here and touch the lower Bollinger Band, 130s, 120s before going up. There's always that chance, right? Is it necessarily going to happen? Maybe. I'm not sure. If it happens, am I scared about it? Not really, because the entire move down has been on pretty low volume, declining volume over here. So this seems like whatever is that they're trying to do, they're just doing it because of two things. One is you constantly have some low level of sell pressure, but there's been a buyer strike throughout the entire, almost like close to the entire year. There's just been a buyer strike. And right now, when price just kind of gone down far enough, you're starting to get some acceleration of price going down, because you're going to start having a lot of short sellers that are like very frustrated and looking at it. They're going to look, hey, it's probably going to go down further. We're going to follow momentum. There's no indicators that this is bottom, so you're going to end up having some additional selling pressure down here without a whole lot of buy pressure. And that's what ends up happening, having a falling knife kind of scenario. But it's happening on decreasing volume. All it really takes for price to like jump all the way up real fast is just to have a little bit of increasing buying pressure. That's all you really need. But so far we're not really seeing that. We haven't really seen that throughout the entire year, unfortunately. But do I think the price is necessarily going to go down here to a lower Bollinger Band to bounce up from there? No, because nothing is ever guaranteed, although it does look like that's a part of Tesla's personality, doesn't it? It does make you think. I don't think we really ever had a situation like this before, right? So we'll see what happens. I'm not necessarily that afraid that it's going to go down to like the 120s, 130s, but there's always that scenario, right? And I have to share that with you when I see something like that. Here, looking at the weekly, it already has bounced from the lower Bollinger Band. It just kept bouncing down and down. It just kept on going down, down, down. Like, is it going to go all the way down to the floor? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I do think that there's some deceleration over here. I do think the selling volume is really trying to slow down. I do think that sellers are starting to get a little bit exhausted. But you never know, right? Could it go down to the 120s, 130s over here on a weekly before bouncing up? Kind of like how it got really keep getting closer and closer to the lower Bollinger Band here before going up. Possible. I don't know, right? But one thing I can tell you, short term, what I think is going to happen. I think short term we're about to get a bounce, and that bounce could be potentially pretty powerful. And the reason why I think we're going to end up getting a bounce is this. We end up having a daily candle that closed way outside, way underneath the Bollinger Band like that. It's basically in space. Like this candle over here was in space, right? You think that would end, it ended up touching the Bollinger Band, and ended up creating another candle down here in space. Compare over here to over here. This is just like what, like how many days? 1, 2, 3. And price has dropped down all the way from the bottom of the Bollinger Band, close outside of Bollinger Band, and it just kind of went in space for 3 days in a row. This is setting up for a potentially pretty decent bounce, although Tesla has done that before, right? But it's still, yeah. So we'll see. I mean, there's a potential. I think the Bollinger Band is going to keep on getting dragged down, right? But this is not sustainable. This reminds me of what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Palantir back in May of 2022. It really is reminding of like this big candle right here where, yeah, price is here, and the next thing you know, like it just ended up closing in space. It's just like a parabolic move up. Like, this is not sustainable. Something's got to give. This is entirely unsustainable. I mean, granted, did price end up making a lower low? It did. I mean, over here, Palantir was like, what, 750? And you could have bought down here at 650 and thought you got a really good deal. The price ended up making another lower low around like $6, right? But that was the bottom. Right now, the price is in the 20s. That's what it kind of reminds me of by looking at what we're dealing with right here, where we just kept on having candles and candles and candles in space. And this is not sustainable. This is just not sustainable. I don't know what else to say. Do you think that just because of this, like Tesla has bottomed for the entire cycle? No. Because I just showed you Palantir that can keep making lower low after that. Just because you see a daily oversold condition doesn't necessarily mean that this is bottom for the cycle. But in the short term, I think it's a pretty decent risk-reward ratio if you end up buying today's candle. It might take some time to work out. I mean, it can take another few days, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for it to go, bounce up. But I think this is like ridiculous. Doesn't mean that we're bottom, not necessarily, right? I'm going to take out the Bollinger Band. I'm going to go for a little bit faster here. I'm going to go through back to the monthly chart over here. So what else can you tell whether or not it's had bottom, right? Some people say look at volume. You want to look at capitulation. Bottom always comes with capitulation, which is not true. Bottom can also come when a volume is exhausted. For example, I can show you Tesla has done both, right? Tesla has capitulated over here on high volume, right? Tesla has capitulated down here on high volume, right? That's a bottom. That's a bottom, high volume bottom. Tesla has capitulated over here in high volume. That's a high volume bottom, right? But Tesla has also bottomed on low volume before. Like this is relatively low volume, right? Like it doesn't always have to happen this way. Right now we just have declining volume, just keep on going down. There's also a possibility where Tesla can decline in lower volume. So this is always one way to, for it to kind of roll and bottom here. What other things can you look at to try and find a bottom? You can look for fractals. Right now I drew a line over here, I drew another similar line over here, which I find to be potentially very similar levels of support. Although again, like there's no guarantee this is not going to fall down further, right? But I'm just drawing something here. If you look at a fractal, what it do? This is a 30-month moving average, right? Kind of crawling, got underneath of it a little bit, got back above, kind of hugging it over here, got below over here a little bit, touched this line, bounced up, right? We might be, seeing something very similar over here, but again, there's no guarantee. The whole thing about fractals, you cannot just base on what happened in the past and think that the exact same thing is going to happen. There's no guarantee that's going to happen, right? But it does make you think that that might be a part of Tesla's personality that might potentially play out, but you just don't know for sure. The other thing to look at, okay, so do you have any other like fractals that can potentially help us to figure out what level we could be at? Where are we going to potentially end up bottoming? There is a couple lines here I can draw, one here and then another one over here, right? So what does that ends up happening is you have a little bit of resistance level over here, you have a little bit of support over here, because this basically had flipped this diagonal line here from resistance to support, back tested it, and flew, right? Do we have a very similar potential setup over here? Maybe, right? Down here is a whole downtrend over here. Looks like we broke above of this downtrend, and then we're just basically doing like a pretty severe back test just like we did over here, right? And what is the resistance level up above? The resistance level up above is right here. So does it mean that we could potentially end up bouncing in the back test and go up higher? Certainly, that's a possibility. Can price end up going further down and just kind of going down to 130s, 130s, 120s over the next couple of months before going up? Sure, that's also a possibility, right? This fractal doesn't really tell you that, but that's always a possibility. So far I gave you a lot of different kinds of examples in terms of technical analysis to try to catch a bottom, but none of those are guaranteed. You can't really say that you can find an exact bottom. It doesn't really exist. Like there's not really one thing that can tell you that that's a bottom for sure. But there are a few things that are just kind of not sitting right. One is the declining volume and the bullish diversions with the OBV. That just doesn't really seem to sit right for some reason. Like there's something that's kind of weird here. Another thing I also want to show you is actually on the capitulation over here when price went down to like about 100 around here, you actually have a lot of huge institutions that have bought in. I mean, granted, institutional accumulation has kind of slowed down. It has recently actually ended up picking up a little bit over here as price continued to go down on declining volume. It does make you wonder whether or not institutions just kind of using this as an opportunity to accumulate before price just kind of go up a lot higher. But again, it didn't really have that big hump right there. It tells you that you're about to bottom either, right? I really do think what happened down here when price got down to 100 was a lot of deleveraging that had happened. And when price kind of went down here, this could be the version of Tesla where there might be a little bit of reaccumulation that's been happening behind the scene, like right around here. I don't know. It's really tough to say when it comes to this stock. Could it go down further? Possibly. There's always that possibility. I just show you the possibility of it going down further. If you're talking about fundamentals, this stock has pretty much had everything that's kind of thrown at it. It's still a profitable company. The valuation is still considered to be high, and in order for a stock like this to command a high valuation, you really want to see growth, right? But for Tesla, the recent earnings has really been pretty horrible. Like there's really not really been any growth. For a growth company not showing any growth, you're going to get punished, right? And exactly what's happening to Tesla. It doesn't matter if the company is profitable. It doesn't matter what it's doing. It's not, the valuation is just not justifiable for Wall Street right now, and that's kind of what they're saying. but there are always, these things that you can think about. I think a lot of people are buying in because I'll tell you why I'm buying in. Just like I'll tell you why I kept buying in when when Palantir was like $7 or $6. When Palantir was $7 and $6 over here around May and all the way through like December. December was particularly one of the most horrible earning report that Palantir has ever had, right? No, like they're not profitable. There's no growth. Like basically, the earnings like say they show no growth at all. The only reason why you buy down here for Palantir was because you think the AI is going to be a big thing. You think that the software is going to be, lack of competitors. You think that the government model is going to be very super sticky. You think about, all of these things, and you see a vision. You see a vision that Palantir is going to become something great, and that this is just because of macroeconomic environments. This is just going to be temporary. You can see that there are people that actually end up, accumulating over here behind the scenes, even though the sentiment is absolutely horrible, right? That's the reason why I bought it, and I've been buying really like all the way down here. I actually started buying down over here too, but I kept on buying really like down here, right? Heavily, right? And when price get up here, I kept buying, not as heavily, but majority of the stuff over here I bought. Did I have any confirmation it was going to bottom? I mean, I did see some, bullish divergences, things like that, sure. But things were very, very scary down here. The fundamentals was not great, but you were doing it because you see a vision, right? Another thing I also want to say is that, okay, so what about Tesla that makes it feel like it could potentially be a long-term attractive investment, even though the valuation is high, even though there's no growth? Well, there are quite a few things actually. Like they're literally transforming the world. They are the EV company that everybody talks about, everybody thinks about. They are extremely competitive. They're profitable. They're efficient. They spend years to do things that other people can't. The only competitions are in China, and it's probably because they're also very heavily subsidized over there too, right? But Tesla has really found a way to become its own thing, and there are quite a few things that are transpiring. They're coming up with new car models. They continue to improve margin over the years, even the margin currently has not been improving. There's no reason to think that the trend won't continue moving forward because they've shown that they'll be able to do it. There's FSD, and FSD just kept getting better and better. There's a potential where the robotaxi network can come years down the road. So all of these things are coming. You have to have a vision if you want to buy a falling knife right now. You have to have a vision. You have to see that it's potentially going somewhere. If you don't see it going there, if you're just looking at short-term valuation, like things can keep going and things can keep deteriorating right in front of your eyes, and price could keep going down and down and down. But the thing is, I'm seeing a very, very similar kind of sentiment. I'm seeing some very similar type things I'm seeing, like I did back in when I was buying, heavy pound here back in from May 2022 through December 2022. And I'm seeing some very, very similar things. Another thing too, like if all these great things are happening to Tesla, why isn't the price up like a lot higher? Why does it just keep going down? Like Bitcoin, right? When did they start approving the ETF? They started approving around January. Did price just bump up immediately after January? No. They weren't having like this doji can over here. Sometimes things just need time to work out. And I think Tesla just need time to work out. To me, there's no way for me to tell you that this is the bottom. Like there just isn't. I'm buying slowly because there are thought processes that I think of that are justifiable to me in terms of risk tolerance. I did not buy up here. I started buying over here. I kept buying. I stopped buying up here. I started buying again over here. So to me, there is certain risk levels and certain risk tolerances that I am not willing to take and certain that I am willing to take. And that's okay. Like I'm right now, my position is at a loss, like down like 20%. I'm okay with it. I'm going to keep buying slowly, and it keeps on going down further because it's falling knife. I'm okay with that too because I have a plan. I know what I'm doing. I'm okay if I lose money. That's okay. Some people prefer seeing some confirmation as bottom. It's just not my style. I like catching falling knife, and it's okay with me. I see some other people posting. I feel sorry for people who bought like 400. It's so bad. It's so sad. These are bag holders. They got all hyped up over here. They thought price is going to go up to 1,000. Oh, that's so sad. I feel so sorry for them. Nobody asked you to feel sorry for them. Nobody asked you to feel sorry for them. They made their decisions. They are learning from this process. They did what they had to do, what they thought they had to do. They had good intentions. They believed in something. It didn't work out in terms of price. They might suffer from it, but nobody asked you to be feeling sorry for them. There is no pity needed. They don't need your pity. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a good one. Bye.